Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Starting the Day the Right Way 5-minute devotion for December 1st, 2020. We are in the final month of the year. What a year it has been. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and let's hop right into it. All right, so today's reading comes from Mark 5:21-43. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will make sure to post the entire portion of scripture because it is packed full with life examples. I want to take a couple of things from this particular portion of scripture. So let me get into the parts I want to read and then we'll talk about it. All right, so this comes, like I said, from Mark 5:21-43. This story is about the Jewish leader Jairus, whose daughter was dying. Some portions of scripture said by the time he got to Jesus, she had already died. All right, so we're going to pick it up in verse 21. And it goes, this is coming, by the way, from the Message. After Jesus crossed over by boat, a large crowd met him at the seaside. One of the meeting place leaders named Jairus came. When he saw Jesus, he fell to his knees beside himself as he begged, "My dear daughter is at death's door. Come and lay hands on her so she will get well and live." Jesus went with him and the whole crowd tagging along, pushing and jostling him. All right, I'm going to pause right here. What an incredible amount of faith for this man, right? He had no doubt that if he would just ask Jesus and Jesus would just come, she would get well. So imagine that he had to work his way through the crowds. Now, me and my wife happen to have lost our daughter, so I am very in line and in tune with this man right here, knowing the prayer and the big ask that he was asking. During my wife's pregnancy, we knew around 4 months that my daughter was had a condition that could lead to death, and we were praying and begging and sending any way we could. We were praying for God to save her life. He chose to take her home, and that is how it worked out with our daughter Eve, but not for Darius. Okay, so I just wanted to get that in there before I read any more of the scripture there. All right, so continuing. A woman who had suffered a condition of hemorrhaging for 12 years, a long succession of physicians, so she had many doctors, had treated her and treated her badly, taking all her money and leaving her worse off than before. Had heard about Jesus, so she had heard that Jesus was going to be in town. She slipped in from behind and touched his robe. All right, so you can tell that she's thinking the same exact thing that Darius is thinking, that if I can just touch this person, even his robe is powerful enough to heal me. So that's what she was thinking. If I can put a finger on his robe, I can get well. The moment she did it, the flow of blood dried up that instant. She could feel the change and knew her plague was over and done with. And what a feeling that must have been for her, right? At that same moment, Jesus felt energy discharging from him. So now you have Jesus walking through a crowd, and this is what the scriptures are I'll read on here. "Who touched my robe?" Jesus said, verse 31. His disciple says, "What are you talking about? This crowd is pushing and jostling you. You're asking who touched you? Dozens have touched you." But he went on asking, looking around to see who had done it. The woman, knowing what had happened, knowing was the one, stepped up in fear and trembling. She didn't know what Jesus was going to say. Was he going to scold her? Was he going to yell at her? Was she going to lose possibly her healing? These had to be thoughts that were going through her. So she stepped in fear and trembling and knelt before him and gave him the whole story. And then obviously Jesus knew the story, but Jesus said to her, "Daughter, you took a risk of faith, and now you are healed and whole. Live well, live blessed. Be healed of your plague." So exactly what she thought. She thought if she could just touch him, she would be healed. And the confirmation is given verbally by Jesus here. Okay, what an incredible show of faith. But while he was still talking to this woman, right now, back to Darius, I know I can almost place myself in the situation and be like, listen, I got to him first. and I would totally lose sight of all the wonderful things that he'd done up to this point and the possibility of raising my daughter from the dead. And he's taking time to heal this one. I would be thinking, I got here first. Come on, let's go. We got to go. My daughter's dying. And just while that lady had gotten healed, somebody came from the leader's house, from Jairus' house, and told him, your daughter is dead. Why bother to teach her anymore? Okay, but Jesus did this on purpose to show his power. Okay, verse 36 says, Jesus overheard what they were talking about and said to the leader, don't listen to them, just trust me. And boy, is that wisdom for life, right? Sometimes you just have to tune it all out and hear from God. And when you hear from God, it doesn't matter what anybody else, any group, anything, what anybody's saying. And that should all be our desire, to hear directly from God. And when you get that direct word from God, man, does that just bring the anxiety down? It disappears because you've gotten that word from God. All right, verse 37, he permitted no one to go in with him except Peter, James, and John. All right, another big, huge lesson right here. Sometimes we just have to focus on, call our core, our tiny, small core of people that are on our inner circle. And we are the ones who go in, right? Everybody else is excluded. So they entered the leader's house and pushed their way through the gossips, looking for a story in the neighbors, because there's always going to be people gossiping, right? And bringing in casseroles. Jesus was abrupt. What is all this busybody grief and gossip? This child isn't dead. She's just sleeping. Provoked to sarcasm, they told him he didn't know what he was talking about. Then he had them sent out, all right? Sometimes you just got to clear the room. Get rid of all the negativity going on. Get rid of anything that will keep you from preventing what God has told you. Because if God has told you, that is good as gold, okay? God is not a liar. Okay, he took the child's father and mother along with his companions and entered the child's room. He clasped the girl's hands and said, little girl, get up. And at that, she was up and walking around. The girl was about 12 years of age. They, of course, were all beside themselves with joy. He gave them strict orders that no one was to know what had taken place in that room. And then he said, give her something to eat. Because, when you're raised from the dead, you're probably going to be hungry. I don't have personal experience from that, but that would be my guess. Okay. So many lessons in there. But just one of the main ones, obviously, is faith. Okay. Number two, if you have a word, if you have gotten a word from God in the past and it has not come to pass yet, God has not forgotten it. He is working it out. He is bringing it to fruition. Okay, so I say that for my own encouragement, for things that I've been promised, that my wife has been promised, that our family has been promised. Okay, we are pressing in. This is not the time to give up on your prayers. This is not the time to give up on a word that you've received from God. This is not the time to back down. It's the time to press in and fight harder for your promise more than you ever have. Hope this is a blessing. I know it's gone a little bit longer than what I normally am on here. Have a great day. God bless.